Hi guys. Welcome back to Rts Share Tea, where respiratory therapists live out loud. With me, your host, Linda Front, the Asthma Lady. Yes, welcome everybody. Welcome to anyone new. Very excited because I have a new guest co-host and he is amazing. I've been following him for quite some time. COPD guy. Very excited to have him, Mike Hess. So before I let him do his thing, I'm going to do the appropriate thing, read his bio. Hopefully, I don't jack it up. All right. So, Mike Hess is the Senior Director of Public Outreach and Education for the COPD Foundation. He is also the current chair-elect of the AARC Ambulatory and Post-Acute Care Section. In 2019, he was named Specialty Practitioner of the Year for that section and served as the president of the Michigan Society for Respiratory Care. Yes, Mike is very busy and we appreciate having you here today. Yes, Mike. How are you? How's everything going?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Love what you're doing with this, and really love to have any opportunity I can have to talk about COPD and talk about new practice settings and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm really excited for this.
Yes, thank you for being here. I have, oh no, my sound effects is not playing. I had some clapping sound effects, but it's not playing. Oh, all right. Well, do we hear anything? No.
We can give ourselves some sound effects. It's all good.
Yay! I think I hear something.
I was saying we can give ourselves some sound effects. So.
I have some sound effects. I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyway, so yes, Mike, thank you so much for being here with us. So excited to have you. So I always, you know how it is with respiratory therapists. Everyone has their story of what got them into the field. So let's hear your story. What got you into the field of respiratory care?
Well, I would love to say it was some kind of, inspirational moment where the clouds parted and the sunshine came down and all that sort of thing. But the honest truth of the matter is the waiting list for nursing school was too long at the time. I was a bit of a late bloomer, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. We had two kids at home and, just trying to get my life together. And my wife was a nurse and thought what she did was pretty cool. Loved watching the ER and medical shows and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, yeah, I think I could probably do that. And then it was going to be about a 2-year wait to get into that. And right down the hallway was the respiratory therapy department. And my wife said, hey, I think you might be pretty good at that. And I actually had some experience with that because our oldest was a preemie. She was born about 36 weeks premature. Spent about a week in the NICU, chest tube, surfactant, vent, all that kind of stuff. And I
Okay.
was fascinated that there were people there that could figure out what all the little squiggles meant and, the whole rows of numbers and all that. So I thought that was interesting. I just didn't really know what it was. So
Right.
I ended up stumbling into that. And I've never really looked back. This is the universe or whatever power you want to believe in led me right to where I'm supposed to be. So
Right. It's a good place to be. I like meeting people who are just like, just happy to do what they're doing and finding their way in the career. So, and with that being said, so to follow up with that on that, what led you to go into that direction of working with specifically with patients with COPD and being an advocate and for those on oxygen and all that stuff?
yeah, so honestly, it's almost a similar story. It's not something I originally really set out to do. I thought, like I think many of us, I thought I was going to be the vent guy. That's where that
Right.
was going to be my mark, in ICU and all that sort of thing. But I had an opportunity to do some continuing education videos. And
Hmm.
honestly, I don't even know whatever happened to him. But the guy said, "Well, if you agree to do 4, we're going to fly you out to our little studio in Monterey, California, and if you do 8, you can bring a guest." So I thought, well, that's great.
Good
I'll
deal.
do 8. I'll bring my wife. It's going to be February. It's going to be a little Valentine's Day thing in Monterey. I hadn't been to California before, so let's do that.
Hmm.
And so, I started off with all the usual topics, the ABGs and ventilator waveforms and all that sort of thing. And then, you kind of get down toward the end and it's like, well, now what am I going to talk about? And this went into COPD and really learned that we were doing a terrible job at the time of actually helping people manage this condition. We
Right.
see people
Mhm.
all the time. They're the frequent flyers. Why aren't they just taking their inhalers? Why don't they just quit smoking? That's kind of the stereotype. And this was also right about the time that the readmission reduction program was about to add COPD to its list. And so there was
Okay.
going to start really being money on the table.
Right.
And again, I was talking with my wife, and we're saying that this could be an opportunity. If I can really get ahead of some of these things, I can make a mark in this whole COPD world, and that is that's an avenue. I don't necessarily have to do what everybody else is doing,
I love it.
and kind of
Love
went from there. The community has been great for me. It started with a Facebook group because my dad was a teacher. I was really interested in learning styles, and I saw at the time, I know we can say what we want about Facebook and social media these days, but at the time, it was a great tool to use a lot of different media.
right.
We could use text, we could use graphics. Eventually we did Facebook Lives and video discussions and things like that.
Nice.
And it really gave people access to somebody who could give them some objective information and help them manage their condition a little bit more. And then it's just kind of grown from there.
I love that. I love the fact that you found kind of like a gap, a need, and you was able to identify like, okay, this might be an opportunity where you can provide an additional service as a respiratory therapist. And I think that's what just shifting when people feel like we're just obligated to be in acute care settings and that's it. And when it's time to transition away from that, oftentimes I start to see therapists, they get a little lost or they just feel like they have to leave the profession. And it's like, it's that's not necessarily true. There are other opportunities out there for different personalities and where you can shine, and I love hearing your story.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I mean, that's another thing I'm very passionate about. Obviously, I'm a huge patient advocate, but I like to think of myself as a professional advocate too, because I really do believe in what we do as respiratory therapists. We have a very particular skill set. We have a very particular set of knowledge,
Yes.
and I think we can provide a lot of value outside of our traditional boxes, whether it's acute care or PFT diagnostics. We've kind of we've put ourselves into some of these boxes, and I think there's a lot of things that we can do outside of that. We just have to keep kind of chipping away at the boundaries.
Right, right. And I I forget where I hear it from, where I heard this from, but it's always you always hear from somewhere it's like, oh, we've never done that, or we don't do that until somebody does it. And then it's like, oh, okay. So I guess we do that. It's like, or we can do that. So you just never know um what going sometime against the flow of things, what it could bring, the opportunities and whatnot. So I feel like that's what kind of what happened to me too. I just fell in this unicorn space, and that's what everyone is seeing as me as the asthma lady doing this thing. I just kind of fell into this space and just ran with it.
For
Yes.
sure. On the video, if you're watching this on the video, you can see behind me I've got a lot of Star Trek and sci-fi
Yeah.
paraphernalia. And
Oh,
one of the biggest quotes that I've tried to live by is Captain Picard from The Next Generation. He's got a line where he says, "Things are only impossible until they are not." Because it's one of those things we never thought. People, you couldn't go 10 miles an hour until they invented the car, and you
right.
can't. People just can't do a thing until, like you said, somebody actually does it, and then we can kind of. It just takes that one hit sometimes, and then the everything kind of bursts through.
R- It's, And I totally should hook you up with my husband because he's very into that stuff. And I don't want to embarrass myself and tell you what I know. The little that I know about Star Trek. So, but I love the memorabilia in your background. He has similar things. So what I was gonna say. So yeah, so what okay, so once you went in this direction in your career, what barriers, if any, that you had at that time in the beginning of your journey?
Oh, they're looking back, there were a lot of barriers, and it's one of those things where it's almost kind of better that I didn't know at the time because if you don't know what you don't know, then you don't know what you can't do, or
Mhm.
what you quote unquote can't do. There really wasn't a model for a lot of these things. So first off, I knew I had to go back to school. I had an associate's degree at the time, and I knew that if I wanted to be taken seriously at all in the policy discussions, I needed to have at least a bachelor's degree. And we
Right.
can have endless conversations about whether that's fair or right or whatever, but it's kind of the way it is. So
Yeah.
went back to school, and then got a bachelor's in interdisciplinary health services because we didn't have any BSRT programs in my area at the time or anything like that.
Okay.
um, which was helpful also because it helped me kind of learn how the system works. It's some of those things
Right.
we
In
don't
general.
necessarily get
In our
in our
field.
base education. And then I really wanted to go beyond, the Facebook and things like that at the time. This was an era before we had a lot of telehealth or anything like that. It wasn't really kind of a concept. And so I thought, well, what if I could bring this kind of education to real, in real life? Where do I go for a clinic or something like that? And as it happens, we had a fairly new medical school here where I live in Southwest Michigan,
Okay.
and ended up finding the dean's email address somewhere and basically cold emailing him and saying, this is who I am. I'm a respiratory therapist. This is what I see. Chronic conditions. Primary care is a great place to handle a lot of these things, because a lot of people don't have access to pulmonologists, or they don't have that ongoing relationship. Um, uh, Maybe we can start a program. And again, this is the dean of a medical school who's only a couple years in. They're doing all their things. He's busy, I'm sure. And I thought, yeah, it's worth a shot.
Right.
I'm never going to hear from the guy again, I'm sure. At best, I might get a thing that says, "Oh, always nice to hear from the community," blah blah blah, and then never hear from him again. But fortunately, I did. In about 3 hours, he sent me an email back and said, "Yeah, This is interesting. I'm going to set you up with our one of our associate deans and our chair of medicine, and let's see what we can do." And fortunately, I had a couple of champions there, and we were able to put together a clinic here at our medical school in the primary care office. And I became one of those few RTs, especially at the time, that was doing primary care. So I overcame that educational hurdle, and then I ran into the fact that okay, so now I'm the dog that caught the car. I've got this
Oh,
clinic, I've talked the big game, all that
uh-huh.
stuff. Now what?
Yeah.
Because there's no blueprint for this. There's no template.
Uh-huh.
And so I just, leaned on a lot of other people who were out there. Bill Pruitt down at University, or somewhere in Alabama, I think he's down there.
Okay.
Crystal Craddock out at UC Davis, and her road team out there
Nice.
kind of saw what they were doing, tried to adapt it to slightly different settings. A lot of stuff from the COPD Foundation, a lot of stuff from asthma allergy, just trying to find whatever resources, whatever role models, whatever I could to start drawing that roadmap. And there were and then more stuff on top of that. Nobody knew what to do with me because how do you bill for an RT? There's a lot of
Right.
that stuff is tricky sometimes. But we made it work, and it was a really great experience.
You pushed through. And so basically you created your own position. Like you created the job for yourself. You gave the dean an idea. You wasn't afraid to ask. And then you followed through. Like so I what it is that you talk the talk and you walk the walk. You see what I'm saying? So because you're following through with the ideas, and like you said, once they said yes, now it's time to perform. It's time to execute. And then you got to figure it out. So, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's a way to do this sometimes, uh because the temperature that I see sometimes from people is, once again, they'll tell me these jobs don't exist. They're like, no, Linda, these jobs don't exist. And I'm like, yes, they do. They do exist. They're not going to land in your lap. That's what it's not going to happen. So you have to prepare for the opportunity in advance. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really the key. You know, another one of my mentors, Gary Kaufman, always used to, and I'm sure he still does. He says, if you really want to have an impact, you've got to learn what's keeping the C-suite up at night. You know, the CEOs, the CFOs, you know, the
Hmm.
big wigs, and so you make your case, you have your evidence, you try to find, you know, try to put yourself in a good position so that when those opportunities either materialize, or you're able to create them, or you're able to, as you've done, you know, knock down barriers and preconceptions about,
Hmm.
well, this is a nursing job, and you know, you know, in your story you said, well, no, it's not. And
Right.
um, but you're right that the preparation work into that, and having the case and being able to make the case, you know, that's all really essential. And I can kind of see both sides, because a lot of times these jobs don't exist, but that doesn't mean that they can't exist,
Exactly.
or that we can't access them. And that's really where the effort comes in, and we've really got to go track it down.
You have to go for what you want. It can't be
Yes.
you can't be scared. You have to be bold. And like you said, you have to have your supporters. You have to get that mentor. So we're speaking the same language. You need your mentors, your supporters, those cheerleaders. You need your data, something. You have to prove. It can't be a feeling. It has to be hard evidence. We need this. And then execute, push through, follow through. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And
And
go ahead.
I just say, I think another key point to it is, especially at this stage of the game, you can't be proprietary about it. You know, I've had great mentors. I like to try to be whatever mentor I can be to other people. You know, people ask me, well, you know, can you send me this, or you know, how did you do that? I've gone around and I've given presentations about how, you know, how we pitch the clinic and things like that. You've got to
Exactly.
pay it forward, because that's
Yes,
the only way we're going to build these jobs, is to, you know, get people literally on the same team and all pushing in the same direction.
correct. I always said it because I don't feel like the door was necessarily open for me, but I found that crack in the window and I I got in. And I do try to open the door for other people. I don't make it a thing where it's just me. So if I can also assist another institution or somebody or whatever figure it out, it's like, yeah, sure, because I want the door. It shouldn't be a one and done. I want the door open so other people can discover um, career paths like this, jobs like this, where you can flourish and just be, just doing your own thing, but still able to feed your family and help people at the same time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you never really know when some of those connections are going to come back to help you, you know, come again, kind of full circle. That's
Yes.
how I ended up at the foundation. I took a call with, when I was at, you know, at the medical school. Somebody had some kind of technology thing, and you know, their initiative didn't end up panning out. But then about 2, 3 years later, in the midst of the pandemic, when they really didn't know what to do with me, because I couldn't see anybody and I couldn't do the community things, you know, all the things that were wrapped up in my job. And I was one of those door greeters with the forehead scanner taking temperatures, and they're like, I don't think this is going to work out. And so I was looking for a new gig, and that person actually came back and said, hey, have you seen that they posted a job at the foundation? I said, no, I didn't. But and
Yeah.
she's also was really good friends with our CEO at the time. So it really, you know, kind of eased some of that stuff, and got me to where I am today. So never be afraid to take a call, and never be afraid to
Yes.
you know, look for it to come back around for you.
My mentor, that's what she told me too. She was like, Linda, say yes. And if anything happens at the end of the day, you are a respiratory therapist. The jobs are always there. It's like it's a fact. We are in demand. So it's just like yeah, if it doesn't work, if you say yes to something, you can at least see if you like it or not, and then go from there. Like you'll be fine, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, worst case, the flip side to a call like the one I just described is another call I took one time with, this where I was actually at the foundation already, and this person was said, "Well, I've got this great innovation. I want to talk to you about it." And it's like, okay, cool. So I spent a half hour listening to this gentleman tell me about how he had hyperoxygenated water that you could use to oxygenate people, except it didn't go into, shall we say, the oral route. It went to the other side of the GI tract, trying to be a little delicate.
Oh, oh,
And
okay.
I said, so wait a minute.
Okay,
You
okay.
literally want to blow
Interesting.
oxygen up somebody's
Okay,
yeah. And I was
okay.
like, okay,
That's
so that's a half hour I'm never getting back. But
Well, I would love to explain that to people in my family. Yeah, that's my new job.
so yeah, but usually, again, that's the big risk, because you waste a half hour, and then the potential upshot is so much higher than that. So
Love it. Um, I love this. We need to have another episode. Um, hold on, I'm about to cough. And we're both in the public health space too. I love that. So we need to have another. That's a whole nother thing. But
yes,
Mike,
indeed.
okay, so do you have any? I mean, I want to say we spoke about it already. Do you have any other advice for anybody that wants to take control of their career?
On top of the things we've already mentioned, again, you look for the opportunities, you find something that you can become passionate about. If you're not, because again, I was not necessarily the most passionate guy about COPD when I started, but
Right.
I've gotten there. I've discovered that how powerful these kinds of roles can be. So find something that you can make an impact with, that you're comfortable at least doing until you become passionate about it. Um, Find those pain points that whether it's again a corporate office, or your department, or whatever it is. Find those pain points, and then also never be afraid to network in a positive way. Whether it's social media, whether it's going to a conference. I know, especially people early in their career may not have a lot of opportunity to go to a thing like AARC Congress. Go to your state events, go to regional events, go to health fairs, do all those sorts of things, because again, you never really know when some of those networks and those connections are going to pay off. And it's always good to have friends. So network, find the pain points, prepare yourself. um, I think those are really kind of the keys to it out there.
I know. And look at us. Look how we met. Through social media. I feel like I've known you for years. It's like, and we literally, we've seen each other at AARC Congress not too long ago. And it's like, I love meeting people that I meet in virtual space in real time. So it's like, oh, you're real. And especially when the vibe is there, and they're just like, they have great energy. And Mike, you have great energy. You're a lot of fun. You and your peoples are a lot of fun. I don't want to spoil people's surprise when they meet you and you're in your Hawaiian shirt and you just chilling. And I'm like, oh, that's COPD guy. The first time I saw you, I was like, I know him. In the Hawaiian shirt. I was like, I know him.
Yeah, I just I like to keep it casual. If people, there's so much stress and formality in the world.
Oh my
All the time.
gosh.
There, everybody's just kind of well, in this case, we're literally in a box right now on the screen. But it's nice to just be able to go out and be authentic and be
Be
comfortable with people. And
yourself. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
We the
exactly.
same person. I think we're the same person. Just out here doing what we do. But yes, Mike. Okay. Mike, I always give folks an opportunity to plug away. So plug. What do you have going on? Where can we find you? What's new? What's going on?
Well, I got two main things I would probably like to push out there. First of all, at the foundation, I've got that big fancy title, whatever it is. But I lead a lot of our oxygen innovation programs. We're really trying to, just like we looked way back in the day, how can we teach stuff about COPD better?
Mhm.
We want to do oxygen therapy better, honestly, because it's just not at all a good situation right now. Reimbursement cuts have really decimated a lot of the durable
Ugh,
medical equipment market.
yeah.
We don't have a lot of RTs in those roles anymore, in those spaces. We're not doing education there. The
Mhm.
technology is lagging behind. We've got people
Okay.
dragging these big tanks around, or they've got portable concentrators that aren't keeping up with their oxygen needs.
Wow.
And then around the world, we've seen oxygen shortages. During the pandemic, people were literally dying because their hospital ran out of oxygen. And that's
Sad.
just,
It's
it's a
very sad.
crazy thought.
Yeah.
So we've started this program called Oxygen 360, where we're really trying to look at the entire oxygen framework, whether it's domestically, how we pay for it, how we provide it, all those sorts of things, whether it's internationally, how do we develop that infrastructure in places that haven't had it before? How
Okay.
do we get pulse oximeters to people, all that sort of thing. And we've really started looking at how we can do better. We've started to make some inroads in that. We published a paper last year with Dr. Richard Casaburi, where we took portable devices that you could buy on eBay that were advertised as oxygen concentrators, put them on a metabolic simulator, and found out that they weren't really. They were just putting
Wow.
out maybe a smidge above room air.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so
Wow.
and so we call them non-concentrators because they're not concentrators. And so we're trying to, get more information out there about that. We're supporting initiatives like the
Okay.
four pillars of oxygen reform that AARC and about 2 dozen other groups are pushing right now. And
Okay.
then again,
Okay.
we're building an international profile as well. We've got some great international partners that are trying to help us learn a little bit more about how we can impact things around the globe. We celebrated World Oxygen Day for the first time on October 2nd, '02. And
Nice.
we're looking to what we can do next year. So those are key parts of what's going on the job side of things. But then, as you mentioned at the beginning, I was recently elected chair-elect of the ambulatory and post-acute care
Yes. I,
membership
I
section.
I need to get my life together and officially make that official because I belong to you guys. So yeah.
And honestly, that's one of the biggest things we need is people like you to join us, because we're a small section. We don't yet have a vote on the board. We need to about double our size, and
Okay.
so we need to bring in people.
Yeah,
A
Team
to
Unicorn. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We need
And we
more.
we want all the unicorns. I look at it as, whether it's the Island of Misfit Toys or a pirate ship or whatever, we want everybody. We want asthma educators. We want COPD navigators, pulmonary
Mhm.
navigators.
What an
We
is.
want entrepreneurs. We want everybody who isn't hasn't necessarily been sure where they fit or anything like that. We want to be your
Okay.
voice. And so that's kind of and then also to use that platform, especially once we get big enough, to start pushing for more and more of these roles so that people
Okay.
don't have to go to the hiring officer and say, why are you only hiring nurses for this? Or why aren't you doing XYZ? 'Cause when best practice is this. So that's really, those are the two biggest things is,
Okay.
better advocacy for oxygen and better advocacy for RTs, because we can make a tremendous difference, and we're needed. Again, my
Yes.
bias is a little bit in primary care, but primary care is struggling right now. They're having
It is a
hos,
struggle. It is a
hot.
struggle. You have even during well visits for asthma, you have providers that don't know the basics of asthma management, and it's scary. It's real scary, and
Well,
that's
and so
what should be done. Yeah.
you talk about data. That was part of how I pitched my job. Was there was a study, and it's probably about 10 years old now, but it certainly hasn't gotten any better, where they found that the median primary care visit was, I think it was 15.8 minutes long and covered 6 topics.
Yes.
So here you are as your primary care provider, trying to cover everything you possibly can in
Yes.
3 minutes or less,
Yes.
while you're clicking all the buttons and
Yes.
hitting all the metrics and all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
just
yeah.
can't.
You
Even
can,
if
and
you
that's
the best
where
clinician in the world, yeah.
you can
But
fight
what
for those positions. Yes, it's
what you
needed.
can do is, if you're in a PCP, you can say, "Well, I want you to go talk to our respiratory therapist." You can
Yes.
take your 30 seconds and go do that, and then hand off the tobacco treatment and the inhaler
Hmm.
technique and all that sort of stuff. And that's where we can really really provide a lot of value.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm very excited for what's to come for the RT profession. I especially in telehealth and anything around chronic disease management. I mean, it's so much we could do there because people are living longer, but they are sicker, especially in the lung disease world. It's crazy what's happening here. There's not enough of us. Mike, I wish I had more time, but there is so much more for us to talk about. So I'm gonna make more time for you. I'm going to schedule you for another episode. So we'll keep that. 2024 is going to be a productive year. So I'll have you back on. I'm so appreciative to have you on today and you just sharing the gems on how to take control of your career. Love it. Yes, thank you so much, Mike, for being here with us. Guys, thank you again for being here with us. As always, we are on most most podcast platforms on Wednesdays, and we are on YouTube on Thursdays, guys. So there's so much more to come as the year is ending and a lot going on for 2024. So remember, we are growing together. All right, guys. So remember to invest in yourself and to only compete with yesterday's version of you. See you next time.